Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Faster Way podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Tress, the founder and CEO of the Faster Way. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Randy and Dr. Rob, the minds behind the Happy, Healthy Life, which is a holistic healing company specializing in metabolic health. Thank you guys so much for being with us.
Oh yeah!
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Amanda.
We've been wanting to do this for a while. We love everything that you're doing, and we're honored to be here.
No question. Let's do it.
Well, you are correct. We have been trying to connect for quite a while. In fact, we had not just one, but two major hurricanes that delayed our podcast interview. I was in Dallas speaking at an event, and we were going to get together in person to record this conversation. And I unfortunately had to leave early to go back to Florida and get my house nice and safe for the first hurricane. And then I think we had kind of another planned conversation, and I had a second hurricane. So here we are. It's been a long time coming. What I want to hear first is when and why. We'll start with you, Dr. Randy. You entered into the wellness space. When and why did you decide to pursue preventative wellness and holistic healing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I could answer a lot of different ways, but I'll be honest, it was really started, I believe, now looking back, when I was about 5 years old. And I remember my great-grandmother lived to be 100 years old, which I know.
That's amazing.
Insane, especially in this day and age when people are already chronically sick by 40, 50, and 60. Even if they're getting to 80 or 100, they're not healthy, right? They can't get up and go for a mile walk. They can't get in their car and drive across town to go see their grandkids. So my great-grandmother had a 3-acre garden that she still worked in. She had a hog farm, and she could cook, clean, quilt, anything she wanted to do, she could do it. She was on 0 medication, and she died at 100 years old in her sleep. She wasn't chronically ill. It wasn't some dehumanizing way of wasting away and everybody at her bedside. She was here, and then she wasn't. And I remember thinking as a little boy, I'm like, you know what? I want to live to be 100 years old. And I didn't really know what that even meant at the time. But I look back now, and it comes full circle now, just turning 50 years old this last year. And I'm thinking, wow, the first 50 got here quick. The real flex is the next 50. And I want to keep my word to myself. So I think that started something in me early on. My dad played a real huge role in kind of pushing me into more of a natural health. He liked to take, his health routine was he liked to take vitamins, right? He liked to be outside and work in the yard. He would go to like his chiropractor when I don't think he used it appropriately, but he would only go the once a year when he thought he needed it, but he still loved chiropractors. He would do like chelation therapy. He did a lot of more natural things. And I think he saw something in me too, and was pushing me in that direction to the point where even when I was getting ready to graduate high school, and you're thinking, what the heck am I going to do? He took me to Parker University, or Parker College of Chiropractic in Dallas, and I got to hear the late, great Jim Parker speak, who was the founder of that college and has done so much for natural health. And I heard him speak at the homecoming, and more seeds were planted. About 3 to 5 years later, I was doing an advanced sociology paper in college. It was on alternative medicine. And chiropractic care happened to be thrown into that alternative mix. And I started looking at the philosophy of what chiropractic really is, and something really hit me. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And here's what I learned that made me want to go to chiropractic school. The teaching was that God really made our body to be healthy, right? That health is the normal, and disease would be the abnormal. So the greatest doctor in the world really is on the inside, and that all healing happens from above down, inside and out, and that the body does not need help healing. It needs no interference. I was sold. So I enrolled in chiropractic school, graduated in 2002, was in practice for about 8 years, and we'll come back to that. But there was a huge pivot for me in July of 2010 that shook me to my core, that really has me doing today what I could have never thought I would be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we will dive into that. But oh my goodness, I love hearing about your grandma living to 100
I
and
know.
passing away
My great
peacefully in her
grandmother.
sleep.
Yeah, my great,
Oh, your
yeah,
great
granny.
grandma.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. Granny,
My
that's so great.
mom's grandmother. Yeah.
Oh,
Hey, my
my
mom, shout out to
papa.
my mom. She's 76 years old, at her ideal weight, on no medication, plays golf 5 days a week, travels the world. She is living the happy, healthy life. So shout out to Mama Freddie at 76 years young.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that is great. And I also appreciate your perspective of, hey, I just turned 50 and I'm at the halfway point. I still have half of my life to make an impact and pursue health and wellness. So that is great. That is fantastic. So many people think, oh, once you're in your 50s, it's all downhill from there, where it doesn't
Oh,
have to be. We have the ability to rewrite that story. Also, just the perspective of God created our bodies to be able to also heal and from above and within and all that you said, I think is great.
yeah.
So thank you, and we are going to dive into what transpired in 2010. But Dr. Rob, tell us a little bit about when and why you decided to enter into the wellness space as well.
So for me, it was about when I was 13 years old, and so I was, literally raised in what I would call a medicine cabinet. Would take medications for everything, something that I learned from my mom, who she just didn't know any better. And so at 13 years old, though, I was about 5'4" and weighed 210 pounds. And so I was the chubby little fat kid. And so at that point, I'm like, well, I really don't like this, because at 13 years old, what do 13-year-old boys start getting really interested in? 13-year-old girls. And I found very quickly that those 13-year-old girls were not interested in the 13-year-old chubby little fat kid. And so I was motivated really to want to lose the weight. So that's really when I started getting into diet, nutrition, exercise, all the things. And so started running, started lifting weights. And for me though, at the time, it was interesting because yes, I literally walked in the house one day and got rid of all of the sodas, got rid of all of the ice cream that was in the refrigerator, all the chips, all the snacks, all the things. My mom was like, what in the world just happened? I literally threw them all in the garbage. She was not happy about this. And so I was interested in it, but here's the mistake that I made at that time is that as I was doing that, I learned from my mom that, okay, the secret to losing weight is just really cutting calories. And so I started starving myself. And so I'd go like days where I wouldn't eat. So I was losing the weight. I was eating better food, but I was also starving my body of the nutrients that it needed. So, and even though I was working out and I was gaining some muscle, I literally went from 210 pounds all the way down to
Mm.
124 pounds in about 5 months. So 13 years old, I was in the eighth grade, middle school. So where I grew up, you go from middle school, then into high school in the ninth grade. I entered in my ninth grade year of high school, and people that I'd gone to school with my entire life didn't even recognize who I was. So now instead of being the chubby fat kid, I was this little bitty skinny kid. And so I'm like, well, girls really aren't attracted to that either. And so that's when I really started going, okay, I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to start exercising, gaining muscle. And then I got a personal trainer certification when I was still in high school. It was one of my first jobs, was helping my friends to be able to
Yeah.
gain muscle and look better. And so I was looking better, but I was really still struggling with being able to maintain a healthy weight because I had wrecked my metabolism by starving myself. And we'll get back to how I was able to overcome that here in just a few minutes. But I really knew that there was a better way to do things. And like he had his, with his grandmother, I have a great grandfather that's native, and he was one of the first people to actually put out natural herbs and supplements and be selling those things. And so I knew that. And so I had more of a natural approach, but I really didn't understand it quite well enough. So when I went to college, I ended up going in pre-med and started medical school in San Antonio. When I left, I went to Texas Tech and then went to medical school in San Antonio, where I'm from. But in that first year of medical school, when they started talking about different conditions, the answer for all of the conditions was always take a drug, take a medication. And for me at that time, I had awful migraine headaches, and taking these medications, it just got to that point where it started with like bare aspirin, then Tylenol,
Mm.
then that didn't do it. Then I'm at the doctor's, they're giving me Imitrex, and now I'm taking Imitrex shots because the oral medication was causing my stomach to hemorrhage blood. I'm like, that's not good. And so in school, I remember I had this lab partner, Jimmy Fila. And Jimmy was like, man, you ought to go see a chiropractor. And I'm like, are they even real doctors? I'm like, it's like that Friends episode where they're like, that chiropractor in the strip center, is that a certification? Well, how does that
Oh,
happen?
that's good.
That
That's
was
good.
me. And so I remember though, my stepmother was going to this chiropractor. My dad was seeing this chiropractor, and her sister worked there. And they're like, go see, I'm like, all right, I'll go in and see what they have to say. And I went in there, and because I was so interested in sports and health and fitness, I'm like, wow, this doctor is actually fit. He's in shape. He is way healthier than the medical doctors that I've been seeing. And so he starts working on me. And the way he was talking about the body and the physiology and getting to the cause of problems, that really resonated with me, and starts working on me. My migraine headaches were gone within a couple of weeks, something that medicine couldn't do my entire life. And so I'm like, you know what? I am leaving medical school, left that next semester, left to go to chiropractic school. And so that's what got me on the chiropractic journey. And now with that, then I started really being able to understand what God already put inside me as far as this innate want to be able to get to the cause of problems, and then really understanding, that all healing does happen from above down and inside
Yeah.
out. And so it really changed my lens as to way I was viewing the world. And so thank God for that, because then that got us to where we are right now. So that's how I got into the whole world of a wellness and health, and loving what I'm doing now.
Wow. Ah, so good. Thank you for sharing. And my goodness, I have a 13-year-old, and I know exactly what you're talking about in, seventh
Yeah.
grade, eighth grade. This is when all of a sudden it's like you go through some 3-week transformation. I'm telling you, it's like you go from being completely aloof to the opposite gender to all of a sudden really caring what the opposite gender is thinking. And I'm seeing
Oh
it,
man.
my oldest is a girl, and then I have an 11-year-old, but I see, the boys, and some of them are doing their glow up in 6th to 7th grade. Others are still waiting on the glow up 7th to 8th. So it's just, wow. So losing all that weight, but you're absolutely right. Simply maintaining a calorie deficit is also going to create a bit of an issue where you're not consuming enough micronutrients and macronutrients to fuel your body properly. We talk about that a lot at the Faster Way. Instead of tracking calories, we track macros because we want to eat enough of the foods that God intends for us to eat to optimize our metabolism. So I'm going to dive in a little bit with both of you, and then we're going to talk about how you met, and then we'll discuss your company, the Happy Healthy Life. So Dr. Randy, you already mentioned you went through something in 2010. So speak with us about that.
Yeah. Let's go back there. It's interesting because, it feels like it was just yesterday, but it was July of 2010. We're talking about over 14 years ago. And I was saying earlier, I was 8 years into my chiropractic career. And I had a great practice, really one of the largest natural wellness clinics, definitely in the state of Texas, if not in the country. And here we are. I'm the guy teaching everybody how to be healthy. Rob's my best friend. He can testify, very meticulous about everything that I did, very, very particular about what I ate. You would look at me and think this guy looks really healthy. And then I get a devastating diagnosis. I was diagnosed with late stage metastatic melanoma cancer. So for your audience, that was a skin cancer going on my back. It had spread into my lymphatic chain under my right axilla, had then moved down into my liver, and then spread into my stomach. And so they're telling me this is lethal. You've got to start chemotherapy, radiation surgery, maybe a drug trial, potentially hospice, kind of get your affairs in order. I was 36. And yeah, I mean, if you've ever been diagnosed or you know somebody who has, really with any major condition, it's paralyzing. And so I'll be honest, I was very ashamed and I was very embarrassed. I didn't tell anybody. I kept it to myself because how could this be? I'm supposed to be the guy who has it all figured out, right? And here I am diagnosed with this late stage condition. I didn't know what I was going to do. But sometimes in life, you really don't know what you're going to do, and that's okay. But you definitely know what you're not going to do, okay? So this takes me right back to my foundational principles and what really I had anchored to when I started chiropractic school. Because you really believe, or you find out what you do believe when you're thrown into the fire, right? It's
Yeah.
easy to say something, but what are you going to do when it's literally knocking on your front door and sitting in your living room? And that was where I was. So I knew that health was the normal. I knew that diseases like cancer were abnormal. And I really believed that if I could find out why my body was not adapting to my environment chemically and physically and emotionally, that I could somehow find a way to get well. Because my body really didn't need any help healing. It just needed no interference. That's what I told my patients every single day after every single adjustment. Every time I was in front of any group or any person, I told them this. Was I going to believe it now, or was I going to abandon that? I didn't think cancer was making me sick. I was sick, and that's why I was expressing cancer. And health and disease in my mind are the same thing. Think about that, what I just said there. Did you catch that there, Amanda? Health
Absolutely.
and disease are the exact same thing. It's the body doing the right thing under the circumstances. So my journey was, I want to change my circumstances. I'm in a stressful place in life. My father just died 2 years earlier, who was a hero to so many, me, my brothers, my mom, my family. Devastating emotional blow, stressed out of my life in a busy, busy practice with no rest and no downtime. So I'd heard about a doctor in Spain, of all places, southern Spain, Andalusia, Marbella, Puerto Banús. I don't know if you've ever been to Spain or that part of Spain.
I have not, but we are going to do a leg day event next year in Spain. So if you're listening from Spain, stay tuned.
Yeah, you want to go for sure. So beautiful part of the world. And I'd heard about a doctor there from Lebanon, a medical doctor, a cellular biologist. And I was interested because the rumor was this guy doesn't treat conditions like cancer. He treats the person who has the condition. What a concept, right? So I'm like, I'm liking this. Okay, I can get down with this. So I get on a plane, I go to Spain, and I'd never been out of the country, by the way, and my Spanish was a little rusty, and that's being very kind. Thank God Rob came out there pretty soon after to make sure, he came out there with me to support me, pray for me, adjust me, take care of me.
Translate for him.
Translate, yeah, for sure.
Wow.
But I was there for probably a good 10 days by myself, and I get out there and I get my blood work drawn, and they've done some testing, so I'm waiting to meet with this doctor. And, I'm just like, I'm second guessing myself. I'm like, did I make the biggest mistake ever? I mean, here I am. I may die over here. And I really hadn't told anybody at that time. My own mom, my brother, nobody knew. And literally the door just busts open into the room. I don't know if he kicked the door in. He probably didn't. But he literally jams through the door and he points at me and he goes, "I'll do nothing that will kill you." And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, that's good, because they couldn't offer me that in America.
Wow.
And then he goes, "But you might die. But I'm going to do everything that I can do to get your body adapting again, chemically, physically, and emotionally. I think it's your best chance to get well and for cancer not to come back." And Amanda, here's the best part. He said, "Randy, there's no need for theatrics. Are you ready to get started?" And what do you think I said?
Heck
Let's
yes.
roll, baby. Let's roll. Let's heck yes. I didn't ask what it was going to cost. I think that'll probably not been a good question, right? What's more important than your health? And I was definitely in a crisis. Unfortunately, too many of us wait to be in that crisis, and it costs us everything. I didn't ask for more research. I didn't ask how long it was going to take. I believed I'd found the man that really shared my values that I could literally live or die with. So I got a 20-second consultation for $30,000, and I'm not dead, which is a great clinical outcome. And so people want to know, What did you do? How did you get well? And we can go down that road if you want to, but I think the more important message I want people to connect with is really there isn't anything that you can't overcome. There's no incurable diseases. There's really only incurable people. It starts in your mind. Really, you have to know that God designed you to be healthy, that the body really can heal from anything when you create the right environment. And if I can overcome late stage cancer, there isn't anything that you can't overcome. And I'm here today, and I'm doing something now in a metabolic world where I don't know that I would have gone down that road. But, I'm thinking to myself, if I can overcome this metabolic condition they've named cancer, there's other things that you can really overcome, because really all chronic diseases downstream of poor metabolic function, which means there's something that you can do. You're not a victim to your genetics or to your age. You really have more control over the direction of your life if you really take ownership of that. So it's really become my life's mission to help teach and educate and lead and share and encourage and help people navigate this crazy world that we live in, because my story really equips me to help people that maybe it's not a cancer diagnosis, but maybe it's something where you feel overwhelmed and you don't know what to do. My favorite scripture in the Bible is 1 John 4:4. It says, greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. Whether you even believe in God or not, that is an absolute immutable law. The greatest doctrine in the world is on the inside of us. And I think we gloss over that way too often. I know it's a huge mistake a lot of healthcare practitioners make, and we make it personally.
Wow. There are people listening to this conversation right now who needed to hear that. We have people in our coach community, in our client community. We have listeners who are going through a cancer treatment plan right now, who are feeling overwhelmed, who potentially have a different form of disease that they've been diagnosed with. So I truly appreciate hearing your inspiration and your experience. Dr. Rob, tell me just a little bit about how you both met. And it sounds like you were a big aspect of Dr. Randy's, even experience in Spain, and you were his translator as well. But I just kind of want to hear how you guys met. What was that story like? And then we're going to dive into your holistic healing philosophy.
Well, hang on. For full transparency, his Spanish isn't that good.
Well, it's better.
Come on.
It's
Let's
better.
don't act like you're some translator.
It's better than his for sure, for certain. It's
Okay,
for certain.
Fair enough.
So the way we met is so I had this practice here in Dallas Fort Worth, and as I'm in there one day, I had a lot of students that would always come in to precept or that I would be mentoring, and one of these I say kids, that's what older people say is kids, right?
I am still a kid, yeah.
So one of these kids had a friend that he said, hey, I want you to go see this Dr. Rob guy. So this friend of his walks in, and it was this guy right here. And so he was in chiropractic school. So he came into the office to check it out. He had heard about what it is that we were doing. I mean, we were in there seeing, babies, moms, dogs, squirrels, you name it. We were helping them all. And so he wanted to see what in the world was going on at this place. And he came in, and what I loved most about Randy was so coachable. And so he really just had this passion to want to learn how to be able to help more people. And I'm like, all right, that's somebody that I can be able to work with. And he then, and at the time, I may have been sorry that I gave him my contact info, because he called me literally 10 times a day.
True story.
When he graduated, he was like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this?
That's right.
And so the next thing you knew, because neither one of us was open on Friday afternoons, he was coming in town on Thursdays. On Fridays, we'd play golf and just really talk about how do we make a bigger impact in the lives of people to be able to help them to be able to live these happier, healthier lives. And then we would talk about business, practice, everything. And we became best friends. So here we are, fast forward, over 22 years later, still best friends. And so that's like you said, when he was in Spain, I never forget getting a text message from him when he was there, because we, back then it's like you didn't have the access like we do now through technology with people. So it was spotty at best, but I did get a text message from him that said, 911, get to Spain now. And
Wow.
so I got on an airplane the next day, left the practice, flew to Spain, not really to translate for him, but more than anything, just to be able to be there to support, to pray for him, to adjust him, all those things. And what he didn't know though is that a few months previous to that, I had injured my back. And so I had injured my back so bad, and talk about being ashamed and embarrassed. How in the world does a chiropractor injure their own back and they can't walk? So,
Wow.
back completely inflamed, can barely walk. From the time of that injury, by the time I got to Spain, I had gained over 65 pounds
Mm.
because I couldn't exercise. I was making a lot of mistakes, things that I thought were correct, but were not correct. And so, like I said, I was still even struggling with my own weight. So I get there, I'm 65 pounds heavier. I can't walk. Amanda, you probably would not have had us on your podcast back then because we were not the happy,
No.
healthy guys that you see behind us. We were the overweight, depressed,
Almost dead,
almost dead
riddled with cancer, guys.
Oh
You
my
know, number one,
gosh.
that couldn't fit
Wow.
on the logo behind us,
No,
right?
no.
And yeah, that wouldn't have been
Yeah.
very motivating for people. However, you know, we did turn that pain into purpose. And
Yeah.
so, you know, learning from that cellular biologist there in Spain, you know, one of the biggest things that we had learned is that all chronic illness and the things that you don't want, the heart diseases, the diabetes, the cancers, the Parkinson's, all live downstream of metabolic dysfunction.
Yeah.
And that's obviously what I had with the inflammation going on in my body, gaining the weight. So then diving in deep into the science of metabolism, I'm like, okay, if he could be able to overcome cancer, I surely can be able to overcome this. And so I just started applying that knowledge and that science to myself, started losing the weight. And then instead of getting stuck like I always did, trying to lose weight, I continued to keep on getting, you know, going down to my ideal weight, which I was really for the first time in my entire life. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And then, of course, everybody around you, all of my patients start going, hey, you're actually walking a lot better and you're way thinner than you were before. What are you doing? And so we started then teaching and coaching our own patients on how to be able to do this. And they started getting the same results. And then they started bringing people in, they started getting the same results. And all of a sudden, this chiropractic practice was no longer a chiropractic practice. It had now developed into also a metabolism weight loss practice and really took on a life of its own. And we started opening up clinics, not just here in Dallas, Fort Worth, but all around the country. And so that's how really this all developed.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're like, okay, why are you doing that in Texarkana, Texas? I'm doing this over here. We're really doing the same thing. We're best friends. We always talked about this vision of being able to make a bigger impact in the world. Why don't we just like join forces? He moved down to Dallas. We then opened a clinic together here doing the same thing. And then as a result of then all the lockdowns and COVID happening, we are the guys that were the hands-on guys. I mean, being chiropractic, that's what that means, right?
Right.
Laying on of hands and healing.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was a completely new way of doing things. But what we could see is if we're really truly going to make an impact around the world, then we're going to have to shift and pivot to going into a virtual online space to be able to do that. And that's what we've done. We had a retreat last year that we did at this exact same time in Ischia, Italy. And we sold it out in about 2 hours and had people from all over the world coming to learn what it is that we've been teaching. And that's right there was the thing that let us know that, okay, people need this, people want this. And now we're actually truly helping these people from all over the world. The vision that we had back then was now coming to fruition. And what we say now is we're just getting started.
Yeah, and it didn't happen the way we could have ever predicted it, which is the beautiful part of life and how God works. So, yeah, no, it's awesome.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I've heard a rumor that you like to discuss controversial topics. Is that true?
Mm. Wow. Your suspicions may be true, Amanda. This ought
I've
to be
heard a
good. Where are we
rumor.
going with this? I'm getting excited.
Well, you already told me one thing you didn't want me to discuss. So no. What's maybe one health myth or misconception that you do like to debunk? Like share with me. Okay, maybe it is a little controversial, but here's a myth that we're consistently debunking, whether it's with a client coming in or maybe in a podcast setting or with someone that we're teaching.
Yeah, you want to take that one first?
I'll start it.
Okay, you go first, and then I'll know how far I need to go and how deep I need to go.
Here's what I know. It's like
good cop, bad cop here, right?
This for the when you were a kid, you had those little bitty cars that you could actually you pull them backwards and then you let them go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like to just pull back a little bit and then let this guy go right here. So that's how this works out best. Okay, so
I don't want you to get shadow banned, so I'll keep it. We'll play fair.
I think it's really simple. It's what it is that we've been taught literally our entire lives. And I remember this even just as a kid and watching my mom when she was struggling. And you go to the grocery store, for example, and there, back then it was okay, no fat or low fat, right? And so that food lie right there was that the reality is that all of that stuff that it meant high processing, high sugar, which are all the things that then end up wrecking the cells.
Mm-hmm.
I think the challenge today, and we see it all over the place when you look at all the stuff that's going on, for example, with Kellogg's, for example. Well, obviously that stuff's been going on forever, right? And so just going into the grocery store and the lie that we're being literally taught over and over and over when you, for example, if you do walk down the cereal aisle and you see that this says, okay, this is heart healthy. Well, nothing could be further from the truth, and that being heart healthy. What the consumer doesn't know is how much was paid to that company in order to be able to get the American Heart Association's logo on that package, because it's brilliant marketing on their side. Because if you're eating those things, well, obviously that's going to make you sick because you're now eating things that are high sugar, high ultra processed foods, artificial flavorings, colorings, all the things. Obviously, that's going to wreck your metabolism. And then now you're stuck. You can't lose the weight, which obviously is then progressive. So because you can't figure it out on your own because they haven't found you yet, right? And so they then end up in their doctor's office, and their doctor then is putting them on a thyroid medication, or then that medication isn't working. So they say, hey, let's try metformin. And now they're doing that. That's progressive. That's not working. And then the next thing you know, they're getting insulin. When that stops working, the next thing you know, now that person is getting a GLP-1 or Ozempic. And now you have the side effects of that. So now they've got you into the system. And it started with you being indoctrinated in that because you see it all over the grocery store right there. And so that's why we've got this huge epidemic of obesity here in the United States. And it's really sick when you look at it. It's so corrupt. And what really angers me, having 3 kids, is that they're going after our kids first. And that, for me, is not okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I am so glad you went there, because this week we are seeing quite a bit on social media from colleagues of ours who went to Michigan and are actually outside of the Kellogg's cereal warehouses and HQ offices and speaking out against the fact that cereals in the US have far worse ingredients than other countries, like even Canada. And so let's do a bit of a deep dive on this. At the Faster Way to Fat Loss, we skip breakfast, but that doesn't mean we don't have our breakfast meal. We do have our breakfast meal, but we're skipping the sugary cereals and different things. And what you might not know about my background and story is, listen, I was the kid eating Fruit Loops and mini wheats and Frosted Flakes, and I was prescribed metformin. I was on blood pressure medication as a 17-year-old. I did have a metabolic disorder young. My 2 older sisters were morbidly obese. But you're right. It says good for your heart health. It's just ridiculous. So let's dive into this whole Kellogg situation a little bit, because I'm sure you guys have seen what's going on social media this week. Why is it that in Europe and Canada, cereal companies have put better ingredients than even in the U.S.? Let's just talk about, it's a huge problem. And every mom listening needs to really be paying attention to this.
It is a huge problem. And, Kellogg's was the one that coined the slogan, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, right?
Yep.
Do we want to talk about where that actually came from?
Absolutely. It was the slogan for, was it Corn Flakes in the 70s?
Yeah.
Not because...
Seventh-day Adventist. Yeah. Yeah, they made cornflakes because they had these sanitariums, and to quell the sexual desires of men and women, you give them grain and corn because it literally destroys your libido. So it makes you this eunuch type person that has no sex drive to control people in these sanitariums. So really that whole vegan, Kellogg's cornflake movement was born out of Harvey Kellogg, right? Mm-hmm. And that Seventh-day Adventist movement, not that they're bad people, but that's where it started. Even like Loma Linda is now considered one of the blue zones, which is that whole same community, that vegan community, which we know has been debunked, that all of these blue zones aren't healthy because they never eat meat. It's because they all have strong community and connection. That is why the most common denominator in people living 80, 90, 100 plus years, it is not never eating meat or living on lentils and soybeans. So I think there's been a propaganda sold to us, and it's really because you just followed the money trail. That coincided with Ansel Keys, Procter and Gamble, the making of the product Crisco, sending $20 million to the American Heart Association, all this coming out, vilifying saturated fat and animal proteins. All that was happening over the 30s, 40s, and 50s to where we are now. You can look back and see this was corrupt. You may have had some good people involved, but at the core of it, there was a real agenda at place here. I can remember thinking back in the 90s that if as long as you eat no fat, you're healthy. So I would eat no fat Twinkies thinking I'm being healthy and make my milkshakes with skim milk and non-fat ice cream. And I'm thinking I am crushing life.
Heck, I'd stick the Twinkie in the non-fat ice cream.
Stick them in the freezer,
absolutely.
Right?
There's nothing like a Twinkie milkshake back in the day.
Oh my gosh. So funny.
Oh my gosh.
So what can we do? What can we do as entrepreneurs? What can we do as moms, as people, as parents who are passionate? It's just because they're targeting our children with my kid. Of course they want the Fruit Loop. They're colorful. It looks fun. And so, but it's like, what can we do? How did Canada, how did Europe, what can we do as people in the US besides just simply being educated? How can we really make a difference here?
Yeah. Well, on that note, really quickly, when you talk about the colors are huge because they impact the brain and how you view things. And we know how that impacts our children. And so over in other countries, to get the colors vibrant enough, you have to use artificial dyes. You have to use things like Red 40 and all these different chemicals here in America to make the colors bright enough to impact the brain. Because just like fruit, the warm colors are the orange, the yellows, and the reds. That's when you know a fruit is ripe and now it needs to be eaten. Well, you wouldn't want to eat the green fruit. For number one, the plant also wants that seed to be spread. Well, the seed's not fully matured until the fruit is ripe and it's now expressing those colors, which tells the animals and humans, now eat that. And of course, you're going to redeposit the seed and keep the plant moving along. So they know this stuff and how the reds and the oranges and the yellows impact the brain. So they're making Fruit Loops the way they look don't look like the same ones over in Italy because they're using these nasty artificial colors and dyes, which we know disrupts the gut, causes serious issues with ADHD, all kind of learning disabilities, hyperactivity. And of course, the answer the medical system always has is, well, here's another diagnosis and here's another drug that they can take the rest of their life, which we know is a horrible, lazy strategy.
Yeah, so really the answer becomes, you know what, we really have to make sure that we're becoming our own health CEO.
Yep.
Because you know what, nobody's coming to save you. If you're expecting somebody, you know, especially not the medical community to save you, because you were talking about Europe, and here's one of the things, because we travel to Europe quite a bit, is one of the things that we're now seeing in Europe, and we saw it for sure in Mexico recently, is that the Fruit Loops now, where they did not used to have the same ingredients that they do in the United States, they now do. So it's coming to those different places. And so the same thing is happening in Europe. And it makes sense now, too, when you look at who it is that created Ozempic, for example. Where are they located? They are located in Europe.
Yeah, Denmark.
And so guess what? And they want sicker people there. So with them, it's like, hey, if they can get enough people in the United States, because there is no regulation in regulating pharmaceutical commercials that are being put on TV, where you cannot do that in Europe. So of course, it's a marketing thing where they're not actually marketing that in Europe first. So they came here and now they're coming back over there. So what we're noticing now, and this has happened really rapidly, just in the last 14 years, when we go to Europe and we're looking around, where we would see like maybe 1 out of every 20 people that was obese or overweight. Now it's more like 15 out of those 20. It is changing now. These ingredients that are in our food here are now making their way over to Europe. And so it's literally, it's not one of those things that's just happening there, or, you know, where they're healthier there compared to here. It's literally something that's taking over the world.
Which is really unfortunate to hear, because, you know, every one of us knows friends who went to Europe. I've got a friend in Europe right now this summer, and they always come back and they say, oh my God, you know, I actually did eat more food there. I ate, you know, some bread, and I had some cheese, and I actually came back weighing less. So unfortunately, it sounds like we're going to stop seeing that, because now, you know, their food and the different ingredients are being compromised as well, which is really a shame. You know, here's the deal. We could talk for hours. I wish I had hours. Unfortunately, you know, we have to, you know, maybe we do a part 2.
We didn't get a chance to go down the rabbit hole I wanted to go down. Amanda, you got to bring us back, because I've got a really hot topic to go down, but we won't have enough time today. But I'm going to tease it out there. Also throw that out there. Now you're a little bit obligated to kind of bring us back at some point. So
part 2, I love it. I love it.
You're
throw it out
I want
there.
to know this topic. Trust me, it is hot.
Oh, okay. That's great. Yeah, we will schedule a part 2. Yeah. And unfortunately, I have to I'm like getting on another podcast interview with someone interviewing me, but I just want to talk to you guys. So let's hear where we can find you online, whether it's social media and your website, and then how kind of the process if someone wants to work with you.
Yeah, so they can go to thehappyhealthylife.com. Super easy to find us. All our stuff is there. If you want to connect to us through social media, go to Instagram is the easiest way to do that. It's going to be the 2 life, the H2 life. They can find us there. Easiest ways to connect with us, and we love being able to connect with people.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. It was incredible to hear not only your stories, but how passionate you are about getting to the root cause, helping people with metabolic health, and making a huge impact all over the world. So we truly appreciate your time, and we're better off for it.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda.
Bye, everyone.